Everything has been revealed. The first chapter is out there, and some more details have been revealed about the story. Let's take a look. Hello everyone, welcome back. Some of you may be wondering about the other parts of episode 3, and don't worry, those are coming. But right now we have some more solid information about the story of Lorcana so far. We have the rest of the set revealed, several articles with some more information on the premise of Lorcana, and the Illumineers Trove booklet is now out in the wild. So with all of this information on hand, I've gone over everything and put together what I believe to be the story for the first chapter. So let's start off with the premise for Lorcana. Our first look at the story of Lorcana came on the Lorcana website, which I covered in my very first video, which if you haven't seen yet, you can check it out here. A quick summary though is we got introduced to the idea of summoning glimmers through the use of story stars, ink, and a tool called the Inkcaster. The introduction to Lorcana shown in the Illumineers Trove Player's Guide expands on this. It reads as follows. Welcome to Lorcana, an enchanted realm of imagination in a distant dimension. At the center of this realm is a wonder unto itself, the Great Illuminary. It is here Illumineers first wielded magical inks to create countless versions of Disney characters and items, which are summoned into this world as glimmers. Enormous whirling contraptions capture colorful story star fragments of Disney stories. Glowing lines of color flow from room to room, and an immense reservoir of magical ink, the source of Lorcana's power, fills the lower reaches. These wonders were created by a figure called the Curator, who sought to collect and reimagine stories by harnessing the power of story stars. By pairing their light with magical ink on the pages of a lore book, he was able to create glimmers. He called a small group of imaginative apprentices to help him in this work, naming them the Illumineers. Together they filled the halls with the glimmers and the lore books their ink cast out of, all especially valuable lore in Lorcana. Ages passed. The Curator and original Illumineers are now gone, but a power deep within the Great Illuminary has awakened. Its call sounds throughout the world, summoning extraordinary and creative people to master the power of Lorcana. New Illumineers must resume the great work of the Curator to collect and preserve lore. Glimmers will then roam the Illuminary again. Come discover the wonder and magic of Lorcana. This age is yours. If I'm being honest, I'm getting a lot of Kingdom Hearts vibes from this introduction. A brilliant founder and creator looking into these magical properties of the world recruits a bunch of like-minded individuals and then something happens and they all disappear. Quite curious, but in a fun way. One of the bigger takeaways I got from this is that the Great Illuminary seems to be living, for lack of a better word. We are called here by the Illuminary to restart this work of the Illumineers before us. So, what are its desires? Just to stay functioning? Or does it strive for a greater purpose? But in addition, we got some other interesting tidbits during Lorcana Week. Lorcana Week is in reference to the week of July 24th of 2023 and was coined by the gamer, specifically Eric Switzer, who we talked with on the 15th episode of the Glimmer Gang podcast. If you want to hear the story of how Lorcana Week came to be, it's worth a watch. However, while other publications had interviews and some other content as well, the gamer dedicated an entire week to publishing articles and releasing interviews with Ravensburger's staff, covering the release of the companion app, with which all of the cards in the first chapter were released. and even shared the deck list for the starter deck, so we can now go in with a little more knowledge about picking our starter. Within these articles, there were two that stuck out to me: Disney Lorcana's Story Explained, and Unraveling the Mystery of Disney Lorcana's Floodborn, both very relevant to us here. For now, we'll go over the first. In the interviews with Ryan Miller, he first gives us a lot of the backstory that the Illuminaires Trove did. He did, however, expand on the purpose of the Great Illuminary: to keep track of stories, which are kept safe in the halls of Lorcana to prevent them from being forgotten. Following this, we read about the types of glimmers which we know as the Storyborn, Dreamborn, and Floodborn. The exact nature of the Floodborns continue to elude us as the story is said to unfold in later sets, but we are told that they were created by a cataclysmic event. What is this event? And is it at all related to the disappearance of the original Illuminaires? We need to start diving into the first chapter in earnest and start looking at the clues. Now we get to start looking at the cards for the set and see exactly what clues they give us for the story. Let's look at the card I believe actually gives us an idea of what we initially walk into when we first arrive at the Great Illuminary. And that is Minnie Mouse, always classy. As we can see, she is in an area of the Illuminary that is entirely in shambles. The pillars are broken, cracks in the ground where magic appears to be seeping through. So it's up to us to work with our glimmers and restore the Illuminary to its former glory. To help with restoration, we have some characters like Belle and Maurice that seem to be working together to recreate a replacement or a different version of the Starcatcher device seen in one of the main halls of the Illuminary. And the magic brooms tell us, in the immense story forge known as the Great Illuminary, there's always work to be done. But all the while we're trying to bring the Illuminary back to its former glory, we're also trying to figure out what happened before we got here. There are several theories about what this cataclysm was or is, but before we get into that, let's look at the clues. Specifically, we have Mickey Mouse Detective and the Duke of Wesselton looking into this mysterious seaweed and black ink that is found all around Lorcana. As I mentioned earlier, that Ryan Miller pointed out that the cataclysm is what created the Floodborn. And if we look at the Floodborn cards again, we see what differentiates them from all the other glimmers. This border that covers their different traits is splattered with the black ink. So I feel like this tells us what the cataclysm is, which I agree with Eric Switzer in calling this the Flood. This mysterious ink that does something to glimmers or perhaps tainted the magical ink storage in the lower levels of the Illuminary, which has brought some adverse effects on Lorcana. Hello, Future Loverum here with a little update. As I was recording this video, we did get a new story trailer dropped for Lorcana, and we did get a particularly interesting look at a particular room back in the Illuminary as our main protagonist is summoned to Lorcana. So as we can see in this back room, it appears to be flooded with the black ink. Though it does have a purplish hue, but I do think that this is the same ink that is being investigated by Mickey and Wesselton. So we'll have to keep an eye out on this. Now back to your video. We will need some more background information on Lorcana, which I believe the Belle, Strange but Special at Glimmer is starting to look into for us. As we see on her Enchanted Rare artwork, she has found a library within the Illuminary. And if you recall before, all of these past Illuminaires used lore books to record their stories and story stars. So, could there be something that Belle finds here that helps us solve the mystery of what happened in the past? The pink seaweed, though, I believe points to the who of this mystery. Several of the community's fingers are pointing at Ursula, but I think we'll need a few more clues to be shown to us to know for sure. Speaking of villains, however, while these may not be the villains behind the cataclysm, they all seem to be up to some shenanigans. While not always visibly in their artworks, some of their flavor texts raise some eyebrows. Here's a few of them. With Hades, Lord of the Underworld, he says, production is up, costs are down, the rivers are full, time to talk expansion. The rivers are full of what? Ink? Souls? And what are you looking to expand exactly, Hades? Jafar, Keeper of Secrets, has the line, there's more than one way to bury secrets. So, what secrets are you hiding, Jafar? Maleficent biding her time. One mustn't rush these things, or the greatest plan might come to nothing. What plans are you scheming, Maleficent? And then the flood-born Scar. The time has come to take what is ours. And that would be what? The Inklands? The Illuminary? Even the flavor text of an item warrants some concern. The Eye of the Fates. You can change the future once you know what you're looking at. What is it that they could have seen? And what would they want to change about it? Am I reading too much into these? Am I too skeptical of these villains? Maybe. But we can never be too careful. We've seen what trickery they've gotten up to in their stories. One other thing of note is with Flotsam and Jetsam. We see them slithering around Ariel's grotto, especially Flotsam, with his tail wrapped around this particular object that looks a lot like the piece that Maurice is working on. I have previously speculated it may be the same piece that Maurice is working on, but then I had a terrible theory come to mind. What if it's not? It's similar, but not quite the same. So what if they're going to bring this back to Ursula to create a similar device, for a far more nefarious purpose? As we come to the end of the first chapter, I feel like we have repaired the Illuminary to some extent, as we see cards such as Mickey Mouse, True Friend, in a nice, bright, and clean-looking Illuminary. And as his flavor text says, he's now there to greet all who enter. So where does that leave us? Well, here's a fun theory I have, and that is that the story right now continues with organized play, or even casual play. We were called to the Great Illuminary, and now it is our turn to be the call. Like the curator before us, to seek out like-minded imaginative people like us and to invite them to this great world that we have discovered in Lorcana. And through this, we are helping restore Lorcana and helping it grow more and more, and to hopefully be able to confront the cataclysm that brought ruin to Lorcana in the first place. We are now a huge part of the narrative. This will be our story, and I am quite excited to follow it through with you. So let's keep our eyes peeled for more secrets in this first chapter and beyond, as I'm sure we'll be starting to see more hints as to what the second chapter holds soon. I have been your Warlock Cleverum, and I'll see you on the next page.